All right, let's bring in Tom Homan, former acting ICE Director and a Fox News contributor. So the president famously said not too long ago, Tom, I've done all I can as president to address the border. Now it's up to Congress to give me the power that I've been asking for since 2021 when I took office, as opposed to looking at all of the executive orders that he rescinded on day one in 2021 and saying, there's a lot I can do. Because clearly he's gotten that message, and now we're hearing he's going to do something before the State of the Union. Your thoughts?
Well, look, it looks like an election's coming, right? Because he hasn't done a damn thing in 3 years to slow the flow. Not a thing. And you're right. He destroyed every policy the Trump administration had in place to give us the most secure border in our lifetime. And when Karine says he's done everything he can, he's done everything he can to unsecure the border. The first president in history of this nation who came in office and unsecured the border. So look, he could fix this tomorrow with a stroke of a pen. Put the Remain in Mexico program back in. The highest courts in the land said that was illegal. That's a game changer for the Trump administration. Reauthorize the third safe country agreements with Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras. He could do that in a stroke of a pen. This isn't a money issue. This is a policy issue, and he could change it tomorrow if he wanted. The only reason he's talking about it right now, the only reason he's bringing it up now, because he knows this is the #1 campaign issue, as we've seen in Iowa and New Hampshire. So he's trying to flip the script because of the election. That's the only reason he's doing it.
Now, Tom, according to some reports, the administration is trying to speak with the Justice Department to figure out if whatever action they take, and there's some reporting that it might be around 212F, wouldn't conflict with prior court rulings. You know, under the Trump administration, the courts ruled against some of this. What is the chance that, you know, this doesn't end up working out or it's struck down by the courts?
I think 212F is the way to go. But again, whatever he puts in place to try to win some voters for the election, I guarantee you, look, I've worked for 6 presidents. I've worked for many administrations. I've seen policies come and go. This is an election ploy. If he was to win re-election, anything he'd done to secure the border in the last few months will go away day one. He isn't serious about securing the border, because if he was, he signed H.R. 2. They want to talk about bipartisan legislation. H.R. 2 was passed bipartisan. It passed the House. The Senate should take it up, but the Senate's not even talking about it. H.R. 2 will work. And how do we know that? Because most of H.R. 2 are the Trump policies that we proved were effective, that resulted in a 45-year low illegal immigration. If he wants to secure the border, take out H.R. 2 up. Put the Remain in Mexico program back in. Put the third safe country agreement. He has the playbook that was proven effective. Put it in play.
So one of the things that Biden is reportedly mulling over is a trigger that would stop people from being able to claim asylum if they come over the border illegally. That trigger would be 5,000 migrants a day for a period of a week, or a single day where 8,500 migrants crossed over the border. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the left wing of Biden's party, doesn't like this very much. Here's what she tweeted. She said, "Doing Trump impressions isn't how we beat Trump. Seeking asylum is a legal right of all people. In the face of authoritarian threat, we should not buckle on our principles. We should commit to them. The mere suggestion is outrageous, and the president should refuse to sign it," which is an indication that the left wing of the party, at least, still supports the idea that anybody and everybody who manages to come across the border should be given a chance to claim asylum.
Well, here's what AOC's not saying, because she's not very smart. Here's what she's not saying. Based on immigration court data over the last 10 years, 9 out of 10 people who claim asylum at the southern border will get an order removal because they don't qualify for asylum. They get the loophole, they get released in the United States, 9 out of 10 will be ordered removed for those who show up and actually show up. But they don't leave, because the Homeland Security Life Cycle Report said only 6% of them leave. So the 90% that get order removed, only 6% leave. This is by design. That's why they're not detaining them. If they're detaining them, 99% of people with final orders will leave. So she needs to be honest. This isn't about a true asylum. This is about getting to the United States. This is about being released. This is about failing to leave the country as ordered by the courts. They'll hide out, be a fugitive for a few years, waiting for the next amnesty, waiting for the next DACA. All these families coming across now, that's your next DACA. This is about the truth. You want to tell American people the truth, these people simply don't qualify for asylum. At least 9 out of 10 won't. That's the numbers over the last 10 years. This is asylum fraud. And why they're clogging the system up with all this fraud, we got real people in the world. They really are asylees. They really are escaping fear and persecution from the home government, and they're sitting in the back seat. So we got to fix it. We got to raise that initial bar at the border when they get that first interview. The threshold of proof has to be the same it is if they show up in court, which is much higher, which means 90% will be turned around immediately and heading south.
Well, let's note one thing. I mean, the numbers that John just gave you, that's exactly what's in the Senate bill that Democrats have been saying Republicans should pass it. I mean, we have a bill in front of us. That's exactly what was in that legislation. And timing this to the State of the Union, you know, it makes you wonder if they're just trying to campaign on this and go from defense on the border to offense and make Republicans try to make Republicans share the blame for what's happening at the border. Tom Homan, thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Tom. Enjoy CPAC.
Thanks for having me.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.